Right friends, welcome back to 5th capsule. This is on rate cut. Reserve Bank's monetary policy takes place once in 2 months and the next monetary policy is scheduled in the month of December, and whether the Reserve Bank of India is going to reduce repo rate or not. At present, repo rate stands at 6.25%. and there is a favorable environment for rate cut, and this is a discussion about rate cut in its monetary policy in the month of December. And monetary policy committee at present constitutes 6 members. 2 important aspects I would like to tell you about monetary policy. Monetary policy committee was constituted recently. This is the first step. There are 3 external members: Pami Duva, Chetan Ghate, Ravindra Dholakia. These 3 external members were nominated by the government, and 3 internal members from Reserve Bank of India: Urjit Patel, Gandhi and Michael Patra. These 3 are internal members from Reserve Bank of India, and monetary policy decisions are to be taken based on the majority vote. Then at the same time, if there is a tie, casting vote will be exercised by the Governor of Reserve Bank of India. And at the same time, second important point I would like to tell you, inflation target was given by government to Reserve Bank of India. The inflation target is 4% plus or minus 2%, valid up to March 2021. This is second aspect. Third aspect is Reserve Bank of India kept its internal inflation target of 5% by March 2017. So these are the important aspects when you look at monetary policy. There are 2 policies. One is fiscal policy, the other one is monetary policy. Fiscal policy is with regard to government's revenue as well as expenditure, which is looked at by the finance ministry. Monetary policy is undertaken by the monetary policy committee, where 3 members are from Reserve Bank of India and 3 external members. So this is all about fiscal policy as well as monetary policy. And Reserve Bank's monetary policy basically looks at money in circulation. Before going into the favorable environment as far as the rate cut is concerned, let us have a glance at what is meant by monetary policy and what are the tools available under the monetary policy. So monetary policy basically looks at circulation of money in the financial system. So here, reserve ratios. Reserve ratios are cash reserve ratio as well as statutory liquidity ratio. Cash reserve ratio as well as statutory liquidity ratio. Cash reserve ratio is stipulated as per RBI Act, Section 42(1), and the statutory liquidity ratio is stipulated as per Section 24 of Banking Regulation Act. And at present, CRR is 4%, SLR is 20.75%. CRR, it should be kept in the cash form. SLR can be kept either in cash, gold or government approved securities. So this much money is to be kept aside in the banking system. CRR and SLR, this is to be kept aside basically to take care of liquidity and solvency in the banking system. Liquidity and solvency in the banking system, to take care of it, this CRR and SLR is stipulated. Remaining points I have given here. And if CRR is decreased by 1%, then what will happen? Around 95,000 crores of rupees will flow into the banking system and liquidity will increase, money circulation will increase in the banking system. And if CRR is increased by 1%, what will happen? Then rupees 95,000 crore will be sucked from the banking system. So here money circulation will reduce. Similarly, if SLR is decreased by 1%, then what will happen? 95,000 crores of rupees will flow into the banking system, and if SLR is increased by 1%, then 95,000 crores of rupees will be sucked in from the banking system. But for SLR, this may not happen straight away, because now the bank's tendency is to invest more and more in government securities, because the credit offtake is not satisfactory and banks are investing more and more in government securities. That's why change in SLR may not have much impact on the banking system nowadays, but if a CRR is changed, then it will have greater impact on the banking system. Right, this is a CRR, SLR, and these two are known as reserve ratios. And if you look at policy rates, here repo rate, reverse repo rate, marginal standing facility, bank rates. Then I will explain you about repo rate. This is the rate of interest Reserve Bank of India charges from commercial banks for short term borrowing. This borrowing is basically to adjust liquidity in banks' day-to-day operations, and the opposite is reverse repo. When banks have got surplus cash, nowadays banks are flooded with currency notes. That's why banks have got more surplus cash, and nowadays banks are parking more and more cash with the Reserve Bank of India. So that is the reverse repo. At present, repo rate is 6.25%. That is the rate at which RBI charges banks for the day-to-day loans, and reverse repo rate is 5.75%. That is the interest RBI pays to banks when banks park excess cash with the Reserve Bank of India. Nowadays, there is a lot of cash with banks because of the old notes are being pulled in because of demonetization, and because of this reason, lot of cash is there with the banking system, and they are parking this cash with the Reserve Bank of India, and the interest as on date is 5.75%. And marginal standing facility, this is another window just like repo. Bank rate, this is the interest rate which RBI charges for its long-term lending. So these four are known as the policy rates. So this is the second aspect as far as monetary policy is concerned. Here I have given interest rate structure. RBI announces only repo rate. The rate for reverse repo will be less by 0.5%. The rate for MSF and bank rate is high by 0.5%. Right? So, having learned this, let us look at third part of the RBI's monetary policy, that is the open market operations. Open market operations means selling bonds, purchasing bonds. When RBI sells bonds, what will happen? Money will be reduced from circulation. When RBI purchases bonds, what will happen? Money in circulation will increase. I have indicated both through graphical figures. Please look into this slide. When RBI sells bonds, then money will be sucked in from the system, and ultimately money in circulation will be reduced. When RBI purchases bonds, then money circulation will increase. This is open market operations, and RBI resorts to this open market operations when there is a requirement to change liquidity in the system. Right? So, having learned tools of monetary policy, we have discussed about tools of monetary policy, that is reserve ratios, CRR, SLR, policy rates, repo, reverse repo, MSF, as well as bank rate. Then open market operations, that is buying and selling bonds. So, these are the tools of monetary policy in the hands of Reserve Bank of India. And having learned this, let us look at the factual information. This monetary policy is being held once in 2 months, and this is the second meeting with the 6-member monetary policy committee. And last time when the monetary policy committee decided the monetary policy in the month of October, it reduced the repo rate by 0.25% to 6.25%. and now there is favorable environment. There is every possibility of reducing repo rate during its monetary policy in December. So I have listed 9 reasons indicating favorable environment. The first and the foremost reason is consumer price index based inflation. Please don't forget, Reserve Bank of India considers consumer price index based inflation. Nowadays, consumer price index based inflation is 4.2%. It is well within the limit stipulated by RBI, which is 5% till March 2017, or otherwise it is well within the limit stipulated by the government, which is 4% plus or minus 2%. So this is well within the range. So there is no fear about inflation. Second important aspect is consumer demand is affected adversely due to demonetization, because money circulation is reduced because of demonetization. Therefore, consumer demand is affected adversely. Hence, inflation may not be problem. When demand is there, then only inflation will come. There are other aspects also. As far as inflation is concerned, I am not going into those aspects. When supply side constraints are there, then also inflation may arise. But I am not going into those aspects. I am looking at demand only, because we are discussing about Reserve Bank of India. Reserve Bank of India looks at demand only. As far as inflation is concerned, supply side constraints based inflation is looked after by the Government of India. It is not RBI's lookout. So here, when demand is less, inflation may not be problem. So under these circumstances, there is every possibility that RBI may resort to rate cut. The third important point is, because of demonetization, growth is likely to be affected in the short term. Maybe during the next 6 months, GDP will be affected because of demonetization of rupees 500 and rupees 1000 notes. Under these circumstances, both fiscal stimulus is required, monetary stimulus is required. Fiscal stimulus is increase government's expenditure. Monetary stimulus is increase money in circulation, reducing the cost of credit, reduce interest rates, so that people will borrow money from the banking system, because banks are flooded with a lot of money nowadays. So the demand for credit is to be created. For that purpose, reducing interest rates is the need of the hour. The fourth one is daily weighted average call money rates are around 6%. Repo rate is 6.25% and daily average call money rates are around 6%. It indicates there is no demand for cash nowadays. Banks are flooded with liquidity. So under these circumstances, reduce the interest rate so that demand for credit will be created. If you look into the next point, MSME sector that is badly affected because of demonetization, and the need of the hour is to reduce interest rates so as to create demand for credit. And after 2 years of deficient rainfall, all of you are familiar with the deficient rainfall. In the year 2014, there was 12% deficient rainfall. In the year 2015, there was 14% deficient rainfall. And this year, monsoon is fortunately normal. So under these circumstances, there may not be inflation pressure on food products in the near future. So under these circumstances, inflation may not be problem. And nowadays, high-rated corporates like Reliance Industries, like L&T, they are not coming to the banks for short-term loans. Why they are not coming to banks? Because bank interest rates for corporates are around 11%, 12%. But if high-rated corporates are issuing commercial paper, they are accessing credit at much lesser rates. By issuing this commercial paper, they are accessing the credit with much lesser rates. That is the reason why high-rated corporates are going for commercial paper and borrowing money from the market instead of going to the banks for short-term credit. That's why the commercial paper issue by the high-rated corporates increased in recent times. So, to bring corporates to the banking system, this interest rate structure is to be reduced. Next point is 10-year government securities yield reduced drastically. Almost it reduced by 1% during the past 7-8 months. And this indicates overall reduction in the interest rate structure in the economy. Then, due to demonetization, deposit base of banks increased though temporarily, and this is going to result in reduction in cost of funds per banks. When banks are having less cost of funds, then their interest rates on loans can be reduced. Under the above circumstances, there is a strong case for reduction of around 0.5% in the repo rate by the Monetary Policy Committee. Right friends, let us see and wait and watch how the Monetary Policy Committee react to these developments during its monetary policy in the month of December 2016. Right friends, please do join for 6th capsule. Have a nice day. Thank you.